All men dream, but not equally.
How do you top greatness? Uncharted 2 Among Thieves raised the bar so much higher than its predecessor that many found it challenging to conceive a way in which developer Naughty Dog could continue to improve. As the recipient of countless perfect review scores and myriad Game of the Year awards, Among Thieves made Naughty Dog as much of a household name as it had ever been. Not content to rest on its laurels, in 2011, just 2 years after the release of its critical darling, Naughty Dog released Uncharted 3: Drake's Deception. Burdened by such lofty expectations, can deception avoid disappointment?
You're a thief. Well now, that's ironic.
If you've played the first two games in the series, then you likely know the drill with regard to Uncharted 3's plot. Nathan Drake? Check. Elusive treasure? Check. Bad guys willing to do just about anything to get their hands on it first? You get the point. Yes, the baseline foundation of Deception's story doesn't break new ground, although the old adage, if it ain't broke, applies soundly here. Yet to relegate the narrative to been there, done that is reductive and a disservice to what's on offer. While the structure is familiar, Uncharted 3 manages to trek down a fresh narrative path. The first two games are akin to summer blockbusters, full of likable characters, sure, but ultimately focused on the task at hand, and the next monkey wrench that will make that task feel all the less achievable. There's nothing wrong with this, and Drake's Deception is perfectly bombastic in its own right, but the story told here feels more predicated on its characters than what's come before.
What, Sully?
He would go to the ends of the earth for you, Nate. Just don't ask him to.
The cast present in Uncharted 3 is the biggest yet for the series, featuring every protagonist that you know and hopefully love, including Sully, Elena, and Chloe. New to the mix this time around is Charlie Cutter, a wisecracking Brit who fits right in with the existing crew. Everyone in Uncharted possesses an uncanny knack for witty dialogue, but Charlie manages to cut through the quips to feel like the seminal comical relief.
What happened to you two? We've been trying to reach you for over 24 hours.
Oh, right, I need to top up my minutes.
You're using a prepaid phone?
Mate, those contracts are a complete rip-off.
He's yet another home run character for writer Amy Hennig, who returns to pen this third script. With a cast of this size, Drake's Deception doles them out at a more measured pace, with characters like Elena and Chloe never even interacting with one another. That may disappoint some, but a fitting consolation is the huge prevalence of Sully. Almost entirely absent from Among Thieves, Sully gets more than his fair share of screen time this time around, with his original meeting of Drake even making an appearance in flashbacks.
So you still haven't told me what your name is?
And you still haven't told me what you want from me.
Okay. Look, you got talent, but you got a lot to learn. You stick with me and I'll teach you a few things.
Yet for all the character juggling that Uncharted 3 executes, its primary focus remains on Drake. This may seem obvious, as he's the player character, but Drake's Deception provides a deeper examination of Nate than either of the prior entries. More than ever before, Drake is forced to reckon with his rationale, as his comrades begin to wonder if his thirst for treasure is really worth it. Light-hearted as the adventures may be, Nate regularly risks life and limb of not just himself, but everyone around him, and it's compelling to watch him grapple with the potential consequences of his recklessness. With a more contemplative tone, disbelief grows a bit harder to suspend in the game's more far-fetched moments, but regardless, Uncharted 3 manages to plumb fresh, satisfying depth for the franchise.
I've had you back for 20 years. I'm not going anywhere. Obviously. I just want to make sure we're doing this for the right reasons.
The aforementioned familiarity around the narrative applies as well to Drake's Deception's core gameplay. Third-person shooting? Check. Plentiful cover? Check. A bizarre number of enemies dressed exactly the same? I think you get the picture. No, there's no mechanical reinvention present here, but again, does what's not broken really need to be fixed? The gunplay feels just as satisfying as it was in Among Thieves, and Drake's Deception manages to throw just about every combat scenario imaginable in your direction. Whether you're contending with enemies in a burning building, in the middle of a sandstorm, or even while climbing up a wall, Uncharted 3 never runs out of ideas. A small but greatly appreciated addition is the ability to throw back enemy grenades. Once an explosive has found its way with you behind cover, a properly timed button press sends it flying back to its original sender. Excessive grenade tossing has always been a point of franchise frustration, so this new trick up Drake's sleeve carries huge implications in the heat of battle. The most significant adjustment to combat in Uncharted 3 is its predication on melee encounters. Melee combat isn't new to the franchise. In fact, it's been an option since Drake's Fortune, but it's historically acted as a last-ditch effort if an enemy gets too close. In Drake's Deception, you're frequently forced into scenarios in which the only way forward is to make use of your fists. These sessions of brawling make the mechanic feel more viable in general, so don't be surprised if you find yourself leaning more on close-quarters combat, even during more traditional shooting segments. The actual process of melee combat boils down to some simple button pressing. Don't expect any kind of sophistication that would rival other games more predicated on beatdowns. Regardless, the mechanics here are more than serviceable and serve as a welcome wrinkle to an increasingly familiar template.
You okay in there? You hurt?
Just my pride.
That familiarity seeps into virtually every other facet of Uncharted 3. Traversal, set pieces, and puzzles all make their return, functioning about the same as these elements have in the past. 3 games in, one could question the viability of a series that seems content to provide roughly the same experience again and again. It calls to mind the concept of innovation versus execution. Prioritization of the former or latter is personal preference, but it's a compelling conversation for another day. Indeed, if you're hoping for a reinvented Uncharted, you'll be disappointed with Drake's Deception, but if you seek a new high bar for the familiar formula, you've come to the right place. Without question, Uncharted 3 features the best pacing in series history, effortlessly bouncing between peaks and valleys. I'd argue one of the biggest strengths of the Uncharted franchise, and perhaps Naughty Dog games in general, is an awareness of when the player has been given enough of something. In replaying through each game, I've come to find that Uncharted is at its worst when it forces Drake through long gauntlets of combat with little to no reprieve. Shooting enemies is fun, to be certain, but only in short bursts. With no mechanical character progression, you need an underground puzzle or an explosive set piece to cleanse the palate between firefights. More than any other game in this series, Drake's Deception understands this. There are still moments where the balance is tipped too far into pugilistic territory, but these moments have never been rarer.
Can't get much worse than this. No! Yes, it can.
I'd be remiss not to heap praise on the specific encounters that compose this finely tuned experience. Uncharted 2 featured some incredible set-piece moments, but Drake's Deception manages to up the ante even more. Particularly commendable is the length and breadth of these high-octane joyrides. Whether you're attempting to escape a burning building, avoid drowning on a sinking ship, or just hang on for dear life aboard a crashing aircraft, Uncharted 3 seldom ceases to make your jaw drop. It's abundantly clear that the team went to great lengths in an effort to repeat itself as seldom as possible, and for the most part, it succeeded. You likely don't need me to tell you how great this game looks, as you've been staring at it for several minutes now, but I'll give it my best shot anyway. Once again, Uncharted stuns with visuals and variety alike. Despite this, the jump between Among Thieves and Drake's Deception isn't as pronounced as the discrepancy between Part 1 and 2. Hardware can only achieve so much, and it's clear here that Naughty Dog has pushed the PS3 about as far as it can go. Regardless, Uncharted 3 is still a sight to behold, tossing you in just about every type of environment it can imagine. For a game now over 12 years old on dated hardware, it's a technical marvel. I've yet to provide proper credit to Greg Edmondson, who acts as composer for the first 3 Uncharted games. Each of his scores provides much-needed grandeur to a series that would lose much of its weight otherwise. I turn a game's music off when capturing footage, which has made a bigger difference with this series than any other game I've covered thus far. The swirling strings and triumphant trumpets add immeasurably to the experience of Uncharted. Oftentimes, particularly in this industry, it seems impossible to raise the bar of quality any higher until somebody does it. Uncharted 2 Among Thieves seems to leave little room for improvement, but Uncharted 3 Drake's Deception manages to defy expectations. This entry doesn't seem to be remembered as fondly as its predecessor, but for my money, it's stronger in almost every way. Nathan Drake's third globe-trotting adventure proves that you don't have to reinvent the wheel to discover true greatness.